land is your land. This land is my land. Hey, welcome to The Whole Truth, where I am taking you through the entire Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation, and we are not skipping anything. So if that sounds good to you, make sure that you reach down and hit the little subscribe button below. And don't forget to go over to thewholetruthbiblestudy.com, and there you'll find ways to support the channel. You'll find Bible studies, and you'll find all of the videos in one convenient location from Genesis 1 and verse 1 all the way until right now in Numbers chapter 35. And we're going to pick up today in verse 1, chapter 35 and verse 1. I don't know why I had to look at that like that. But Numbers chapter 35 and verse 1, we are seeing God tell the Israelite people to make sure and mark out land, common land, that will be used for the Levite people. So the Levites don't get an inheritance, but there's going to be common land in every city, and the Levites will have that to dwell in every city. What can we learn from this? Well, I think there's lots of practical applications. Let's see what we can dig up today. This is Numbers chapter 35 and verse 1. And the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho, saying, Command the children of Israel that they give the Levites cities to dwell in from the inheritance of their possession. And you shall also give the Levites common land around the cities. They shall have the cities to dwell in, and their common land shall be for their cattle, for their herds, and for their animals. The common land of the cities which you shall give to the Levites shall extend from the wall of the city outward 1,000 cubits all around. And you shall measure outside of the city on the east side 2,000 cubits, and on the south side 2,000 cubits, and on the west side 2,000 cubits, and on the north side 2,000 cubits. The city shall be in the middle, and this shall belong to them as common land for the cities. Now, among the cities which you shall give to the Levites, you shall appoint 6 cities of refuge to which a manslayer may flee, and to these you shall add 42 cities. So all the cities you shall give to the Levites shall be 48. These you shall give with their common land, and the cities which you shall give shall be the possession of the children of Israel. From the larger tribe you shall give many, and from the smaller you shall give few. Each shall give some of its cities to the Levites in proportion to the inheritance that each receives. Okay, there you have it. There's common land that the Levites are going to inherit. So we got to just understand a few things. If you've been up with these videos, you might already understand some of this. But the Levites are the line that the priest will come from. So that's Aaron, who was a Levite himself, the brother of Moses, Aaron. He's a Levite. And so the priestly line is going to come from Aaron. And then the Levites as a whole, as a tribe, the whole tribe is set aside to be the helpers of the priest. Now, many times we think of this as the people who are helping with the sacrifices, and that is very true. I even taught that in one of the prior videos. So they were there to help with all of the sacrifices that need to be made. So there's all these sacrifices, all this blood that's got to be carried and poured out, and all these fatty things and all these ashes and keeping the fire going, and all of those things combined. The Levites were the ones who could do that because God had appointed that. And I don't want to just stay there today. I want to talk about the fact that the Levites, who are the priests and the helpers of the priests. So may we say it like this: their job really is ministry. Their job is full-time ministry, but their life is still a life. They have husbands, they have wives. They're husbands and they have children, they're dads, and they need to eat. They got to go home and they got to eat like anybody else. And where are they going to keep the animals? They don't have refrigerators and freezers. Where are they going to keep the animals that they would be able to eat from? Where are they going to keep the chickens that they might have some eggs? I mean, sure, they get meal and they get oil from the tabernacle and from the giving, but they still need meat. And yeah, some of the priests could eat the meat, and some of the Levites might even be able to share in some of that, but they can't live off of that completely. What about their kids? What about their wives? What about their families? God didn't expect them to not have a family and to not have anything. So God says, around every city, here's what I want you to do. Around 42 of the cities, you are going to make a border around the outside of the city. So if the city is this big, go this big. Okay, the city is this big, and now you're going to go out 2,000 cubits from every side. So notice that every city went out the same amount of distance, the 2,000 cubits. So larger cities went out 2,000 cubits. Smaller cities went out 2,000 cubits. So it didn't matter which city, you're always going out 2,000 cubits. But of course, if the city was bigger, then you're getting more land area for those Levites to be able to dwell in. And the land that is being given. So the city is so big and it gets 2,000 cubits bigger. Cubit is a foot and a half. Okay. So it's not a ton of area. I mean, it might seem like it when you say, oh, wow, they get 48 cities. 6 of the cities are cities of refuge, which we'll talk about in the next video. So I don't want to get on that too much today. But then 42 of the cities are common ground for the Levites to have. You might say, well, wait a second. I thought the Levites aren't supposed to get any land. They're not supposed to have land as an inheritance. And they don't. They don't have land as an inheritance. They can't sell this land. They can't borrow against this land. This land is the common land for all the Levite people. So it's not like, okay, well, we have this section over here on the Levite land, and this is mine, and nobody else can have this, and then I can do what I want with it. I could sell it, or I could whatever. No, it's not like that. It's dedicated land so that the Levites would have a place to live, and that they would have a place to keep their animals. So this Levite's here, but if this Levite moves over to this city, then he's going to stay in the common land in this city over here. And then if he needs to go to another city, then he'll do that in another city. And they did. They traveled around. I brought up earlier that we see them as helping in the tabernacle, but one of the things we don't talk about often is that the Levites and the priest were actually supposed to be teaching as well. And so we see that there's supposed to be some priests and some Levites who go around, and they're supposed to help to teach God's word because they are in full-time ministry. So I hope you get a picture of what God was assigning, but now let's talk about the practical, which is this. Notice my shirt today. God doesn't want and doesn't promote anywhere in his word that the pastor or that the full-time minister is supposed to in some way be poor, or that he's not supposed to have anything at all, like he's not supposed to be able to live. Now, certainly the Lord was supposed to be his inheritance, but he still needed a place to live. He still needed a place for his family and for his goats and for his chickens. He still needed a way to live, and God provided such a way by saying they're supposed to have this common land. What can we take from that today is that those who are in full-time ministry, they are deserving of being paid. Now listen, I get nothing out of this video. I'm not coming out. It's not like I'm going to get something out of this video where all of a sudden my church is going to pay me more, or they're going to give me a bigger church parsonage or something. That's not how that works. You are who knows where, all over the world, watching this video right now. So I'm telling you where you are. You're probably not in Kentucky, even where I am. So what does this mean for you? It means that you and your church are supposed to take care of those who are ministering and teaching. You know, Paul said it this way: you don't muzzle the ox while he treads out the corn. So you've got an ox that's pulling a plow. You don't put a muzzle on him where he can't eat while he's doing the work. If you want him to do the work, you got to make a way for him to be able to eat. You know, over the years as a pastor, I can tell you that people have come to me and made the implication that pastors should not be paid, that the pastor shouldn't be paid for his work. He shouldn't be paid for what he does, and that he should just simply love the Lord so much that he wants to do the work. And I would semi-agree that he should do the work because he loves the Lord and he's called to do this work. I would totally agree with that. But I also believe that a man is worthy of his hire. And if you need somebody to do their job well, you need to give them the time to do their job well. Remember, I'm getting nothing out of this. I might be preaching to the choir a little bit, but listen, I'm getting nothing out of this. I'm not getting anything extra from my church for promoting such a thing. I'm trying to help you with your church. If you want somebody, we think of the pastor, but let's come off of the pastor for a moment, because I think that probably get a pass on the pastor. Most of you probably are in agreement to pay your pastor. There's maybe a few stragglers who don't want to pay their pastor, but for the most part, you probably pay your pastor. But would you consider this? Your children's minister, they need to be paid. Your music ministers, they need to be paid. They deserve to be paid. Now, can you pay for absolutely everything inside of the church? Can you hire everybody on a full-time salary? No, you can't do that either. There has to be some bit of a separation. I mean, there's an expectation of work to be done that is done in a volunteer format, but there are some things that if you want them done well, they need full-time attention. And if you want somebody to give that full-time attention, then you need to make it available for them to be able to give that full-time attention. You got to give them enough common land to be able to do that. And it's interesting to me to watch as people would never want to work for a low amount of money in a secular sense, but yet those same people will want other people to work for that same low level of money when they're doing very important things like, boy, you ready for this to get heavy? You want people to take care of your children, but you want them to do it at a pauper's rate. You want to hire it at the cheapest rate that you can to have somebody work with your kids and help to teach them about the Bible. Okay. I mean, if I say it that way, it doesn't sound so great, does it? You know, in our church, I'll just tell you, in our church, when we first were able to start paying, we had a scenario where we were paying most of the people who were getting hired on, we were paying $10,000 a year. And we were able to give somebody a raise above and beyond the $10,000 a year. And when we gave them a raise, there were some who were not happy at the idea that these people were going to get a raise. They were not happy at the idea that we were going to raise somebody's pay from $10,000 a year. And I remember saying to somebody at church, I said, you do realize that I've got a son that works at Chick-fil-A part-time and makes more than $10,000 a year, working at a fast food chain part-time. And these are somebody that we want to put full-time effort into our kids. Do you see what I'm saying? If we're going to ask somebody for full-time effort, then don't you think that we ought to give them the pay that they deserve? That's what I think we're seeing here out of Numbers chapter 35. Give them the land to be able to live because they've got cows and they've got herds of their own. No, we're not giving them exuberantly above and beyond everybody else, but we are saying in the larger cities where more Levites are needed, they need a little bit more land. It's still 2,000 cubits from the border, but it's going to expand a little further. It's going to be a little bigger for the bigger land and a little bit smaller for the smaller land, but in proportion to each one, they should have a place that they're able to stay and keep their families, and they should be able to eat like everybody else. Don't you think that sounds like a good thing for those who are in full-time ministry? I think it is. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you'll come back tomorrow as we get into more of Numbers chapter 35. I'll see you then.